should come now. Alrighty, so hi, welcome to our first Board of Directors candidate town hall meeting. I'm Taylor, if I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you. I'm the chapter health manager. So in our emails announcing for this town hall, we requested that any specific questions for the candidates be emailed in advance to ensure that we ask a great variety of questions while also honoring the time limit of this forum, which is 1 hour. So as you know, this town hall has been scheduled for this 1 hour. You can find information about each of the candidates, their experience, and why they are running for office on our website. You can see the slide that just addresses the structure that we will follow. I'll do some highlights. So for the general questions that go to each candidate, you'll have 2 minutes to answer. And then when we move to those specific questions for each candidate, you'll then have 3 minutes. We will be timing. I have the lovely Jenna supporting me with that. So Jenna might let the sound play for the timer or just might come unmute and say time. And then we'll move forward to the next person just to make sure everyone has the opportunity to answer all these lovely questions. One reminder that we are all members of the sorority. We all want the best for it, and we all want to see it grow and shape form the way we all want. So let's just have this wonderful space that will answer the questions that our community needs help to make this decision. So please minimize any additional questions in the chat, just because we won't have the capacity or time to answer them. But if you do think of questions during the space that you want to answer for the next town hall, please email them to the managing director, and their email is in the chat. So let's get started. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so then everyone can see the wonderful person talking. So first, we're going to move to the general questions. So I've put each of the candidates' name into a random name order for these questions, just to get us started. And we are going to start off with Samantha. I'm putting in the chat the order for the rest of the questions. But Samantha, starting with you, what personal qualities do you bring to the board, and why do you feel that those qualities would make you a great board member?
Well, thank you, Taylor, for that. I get the hot seat of going first. So I think through personal, professional, and volunteer roles that I bring a lot of qualities as a great leader and would contribute as a great board member. And some of those qualities include just leading with integrity. I want to do the best for the longevity of Omega Phi Alpha. And I think I can do that with empathy and honesty, and would really work to provide whole and undivided quality work. Second, I think I have really great, strong listening skills, which for the role of the VP of membership, I think will be really important going forward as we look to listen to the needs of our membership and see where we can incorporate those listenings and learnings into furthering our objectives as a sorority. And then I definitely believe that just the commitment to learning and developing new skills is an important quality, both personally, but I think even as a team, that's something the board and the operational leadership team could do together. And then lastly, just being a team player. So I want to have a clear sense of a shared purpose with the team I'm working with so that we can have a good course of action. And I think just being able to visualize planning and strategy for the success of our organization in the future is really important. And just want to be sure that I can feel confident speaking up and speaking out for creative and innovative ideas. And I do think that I can do that on the board for OPA. Thank you.
Thank you, Samantha. We'll now move on to Nanda, and the timer can start now.
Hi, everyone. I think I would start by saying we are all a product of our experience, right? So everything you've done in your life, everything you've experienced has made you who you are today. And tomorrow you'll be a new person with new experiences. And so like in terms of my experience in personal and professional, what I bring to the table, career-wise, I have a lot of strategy and marketing experience, working in different industries, different areas, internationally, just different ideas to pull from. Also, I like to think that I'm a rational thinker. So a lot of times it's easy to jump to conclusions, but I think that I do a good job as a rational thinker, especially when emotions or tensions may be high, which is extremely important. Working in any sorority, not just ours. And then finally, I'm a people connector, whether that be sisters with other sisters within our organization, or pulling in from my network, professional or personal. I've been able to pull in a few people to help us out, whether it be trainings or coachings or anything that I can connect someone who has a need with someone who can provide a service. And all of that together, it's helped a lot as a member of the board the past couple of years.
Thank you, Nanda. We will now move on to Brittany, and the timer can start now.
Thank you. I think that some of the things that I bring to the table is that I have a pretty extensive range of experience in my life that has to do with leadership specifically, with working with people of different cultures and backgrounds and beliefs and just people other than, myself, and what, some of us sometimes can get stuck in a bubble of what we know. And I think that I've had over the years lots of chances and opportunities to work with different people in various different scenarios. And I also have professionally and on a volunteer level, lots of experience with strategic level thinking. So higher level thinking and sort of taking these big ideas of what, where for Omega Phi Alpha, where we want this organization to go, what are things that we want to do with it, and helping with the other members of the board to come up with this, plan of how can we get there. And sometimes it can be really difficult if sort of that end point is pretty far out in the future, making plans now that lead to that point without getting overwhelmed or getting lost in the weeds in the moment. So I do have a pretty vast experience with that. And I think that that helps with our strategic direction and coming up with plans and ideas. I think, like Nanda said, tend to be slightly more logical. She's way better at it than I am. But I am one of those people that I really try to take in the whole
Brittany,
picture.
that was fun. Sorry.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Brittany. We will now move on to Alexa, and the timer can start now.
Hi, everyone. It's so good to see you. So some qualities that I hope that I've already brought and would continue to bring is as an auditor, I am a very analytical person and a data person, number cruncher. But in my work that I do, I often have the wonderful job of going into someone else's employment and tactfully finding a way to share with them ways they could improve. And so that requires not only a lot of analytical problem solving, critical thinking skills that I have found helpful in some of the challenges we faced as a board, but it also really helps in some of the people skills of how do you influence, negotiate, and help find a compromise. And so in the end, I think that one of the greatest skills that I hope that I've been using and would continue to use is my ability to listen to all sides of a problem. And if I find that we're starting to drift away from what the core issue is, grounding everyone in what our goal is and bringing it back to that and really whittling it down and clearing through the mud to figure out what is going to be the best solution to actually achieve what we're trying to achieve.
Thank you, Alexa. We will now move on to Megan, and the timer can start now.
Thank you. I think
My degree in education is probably the biggest thing that really helps me in this role, because I'm able to work with the rest of the board of directors to create strategic goals. And I do that on a daily basis with my kids. And I'm really good at being able to make ones that are like time oriented, but also overtime oriented. When I work with my kids, their IEPs have to be specific to them. So a lot of what we have to do as an organization is specific to not only the organization as a whole, but also individual chapters. So being able to say what works for one chapter might not work for another chapter, but it might be a good idea to share with the whole organization. So I'm really good at looking at individuals, but also the really big picture, and being able to see what works for one group might not work for the other, but also allowing those groups to connect so they're able to meet their goals by not only just listening to us as an organization, the leaders, but being able to work with each other and utilizing their own skills to be successful. So I think being able to facilitate that and acknowledge all of the different things that everyone is bringing to the table is something that I'm really good at, and what I bring to the board of directors.
Thank you, Megan. We will now move on to Susie, and you can start now. Susie, you're muted.
Okay, start that timer over. Thank you, Taylor.
Mhm.
One of the things I think I bring to the table is my managerial skills. I have been in the management position over the course of my career. I have been able to form partnerships and form relationships with different kinds of people for the betterment of whatever that organization is that I'm working with. Excuse me. I also try to see people if for some reason they're not in the right area, I try to say, okay, look, this just didn't really working out for us, but you're really good at such and such. So what do you think about this? So I'm always kind of thinking out of the box, sometimes a little extreme, because I am a marketing manager. I can't help it. That's just the way marketing people's brains work. But I think I'm good at forming relationships with professional people or just getting to know the everyday person. I've worked in nonprofit for a number of years, and in that nonprofit, I wasn't necessarily a manager, but I was in a relationship with a lot of the people that I helped. So I think it's important that we understand how to work with everyone and to see the good in everybody. And I think I'm pretty good at that.
Thank you, Susie. We will now go to Allie, and the timer can start now.
Hi. So a couple things I think that I bring to the role is I'm a pretty good negotiator and mediator in a space. I really, and that kind of comes from emotional intelligence. I think a lot of times when you're dealing with people, you can't just look at, maybe exactly what was said or done. You have to look at a pattern and a trend and see what the motivators are. And I think when you're dealing with a large membership base, you can identify patterns and motivations. And I think that's something that I'm particularly good at. And then bringing that to the table as a, hey, I think this might be a core issue and motivator for why this action is happening. I've also worked a lot in nonprofit and specifically with young people and especially young, high achieving women. And so I think I have a really good pulse on the current climate of our world, the changing conversation. And I kind of have an ongoing touch point with the upcoming generation to understand where these young people are coming from and the potential new members we have. In addition to being an older alum now, like I'm in my mid 30s. And so I'm not a fresh alum, I'm an older alum now. And so I've kind of had the opportunity to be in a wide range of these membership roles. And so I think with regard to being on the board, I think pulling together all of those skills, being in touch with, the future of our sorority while at the same time experiencing and living the experience of alums is something that I can help bring to the board, listen to people, talk through things, and also help us figure out manageable deadlines to make sure action happens, but that's still within the, world of keeping everything reasonable for everybody's life and timeline and making sure the sorority is doing the best it can.
Thank you, Allie. Thank you to all candidates for answering our first question. We will now go to the second question that is for all of the candidates to answer, and you will still have 2 minutes. What do you think convention contributes to the overall success of the organization and our strategic goals? Samantha, we will start with you again, and you can start now.
Thank you. So I have attended convention many, many times over my membership over the last 10 plus years as both a colonist, an active member, and as an alum. So, I think just that having that perspective, I understand that there is a duty as members to complete certain legislative and administrative tasks as a representative body at convention, and that just most easily, I think, occurs at convention. But I do think convention contributes to the overall success of the organization and our strategic goals because we do things at conventions like provide opportunities for our collegiate members and alumni to just come together, learn about, and grow an appreciation for OPA, but also providing the opportunity for development of new skills as leaders in our communities, to serve the community that convention is being hosted in, to convention also serves as a special occasion to just build connection and relationships. I know one of our strategic goals is engagement. And so I think that very easily and robustly can occur at convention where we can bring so many people and perspectives together to share those experiences with one another. And then I think just convention allows us the opportunity just as a vessel to share and act on our core values in one place at one point in time, especially for, alumni who might be all over the country. It gives us that one place to meet and come together.
Thank you, Samantha. We will now move on to Nanda, and you can start now.
Well, I really like what Sam said about engagement. Clearly, convention is a great way to keep people engaged throughout any stage of membership that they're in, whether they're a new member, whether they're a new alum, whether you've just hit your 40th anniversary. It's a great way to stay involved. And it kind of hits on all of our strategic goals. Retainment, it's keeping you involved. Health and longevity, keeping our newest members, our active members, informed to keep the tradition going, to make sure that we're here 50 years down the road. And then also with recruitment, because it reignites any passion that you had at all, will be just enriched and ready to go to recruit the next generation. And for some people who've never been to convention, you might not realize what the experience is like. I like to say, I was talking to Penny the other day, it's a leadership and service conference within a sisterhood. And so it's a great way to just think about all of that. I also like to think of some people live at the beach and some people go to the beach for vacation. All beaches are different. Think of the beaches as chapters. And when you go to a beach, what's different about it? Well, you don't know unless you talk to the people and you experience it. And meeting people from different chapters who may have done things differently than you, or maybe give you new ideas about how to do things. It's a different level of connecting people and just experiencing the sisterhood, how it is in different places, and enriching our leadership and service skills.
Thank you, Nanda. We will now move on to Brittany. And Brittany, you can start now.
again, I agree with a lot of the points that have already been made. So touching again on engagement, it is a great way, especially for alumni, to remain engaged. It gives a chance for people to make new connections. There is also, of course, through business, we can update our constitution and our bylaws. And this helps us as an organization be able to make changes that might need to be done to sort of stay with the current times, go with the organization's need, just stay relevant and updated as our organization continues. And then it also can actually be a potential way for us to make more money as an organization, nationally speaking. I know that this was something the board worked hard on last year. And while we did still spend money to put convention on, we actually spent around $18,000 less than we have been spending in previous years. So I think that these are really important ways that it helps.
Thank you, Brittany. We will now move on to Alexa. And Alexa, you can start now.
So I have been to numerous conventions, and each one has meant something different to me, with a different role that I've played in it and at a different point in my life. And I think that is what's wonderful about convention, is that it can be so many different things to so many people, and we do accomplish so much, as everyone has gone over. I also think that's exactly what makes it challenging. And so I think what's important for our conventions is to find balance in remaining with our traditions and those things that people expect to see there, and as well as adapting and pivoting to the feedback we're getting and what members are interested in. And that could look very different 10 years from now from what it is doing right now. And so I think it's a balancing act, but definitely I think the sisterhood, the traditions, this is what, especially in these times when people maybe haven't been able to see people as much as they want to, and we're still coming out of that. That was really important and meaningful. I know it was one of this last summer, the first times I'd really reconnected with the group as a whole. And I think it just grounds you in this group if you're feeling lost in life. And so I think that's really important, but also being able to adapt it to current needs and future needs.
Thank you, Alexa. We will now move on to Megan. And Megan, you can start now.
I don't want to reiterate what everybody else has already said, but needless to say, I agree that the engagement that goes into convention is phenomenal. I spent 3 years working with the events team planning Fort Worth's convention, and I can tell you that we used all the feedback from everybody to make convention what it was. We brought in new workshops led by active and alumni members. We brought in keynote speakers, things that everybody is actively looking for. And like Brittany said, we cut costs in a way that has not been done before. And we're continuing to work on that as we're moving into convention for next summer. We specifically chose Greenville because it's going to be an area that is going to really boost engagement. I think convention not only brings in the delegation of actives and alumni, but it creates that sense of true sisterhood that doesn't always happen at the national level. Yes, we're really connected when we're active with sisters at our chapters. Maybe if you live in an area where there's lots of alumni, you can feel super connected with them. But for those of us who don't live in areas like that, unless you're involved at the national level on a monthly basis, you might not feel connected to OPA. But at convention, that all goes out the window. You are absolutely ingrained in the community. And I think that's one of the truly amazing things that can happen at convention.
Thank you, Megan. We will now move on to Susie. Susie, you can start now.
I think convention, obviously, I've been to more than probably all of y'all put together, but we won't talk about that. One of the great things about convention is bringing all different types of people together and learning from everybody. it's a way for us to show chapters what national is doing. We become real to them, and that's important because they need to know that, you know, we're just people like them, but they also need to be able to be comfortable enough that they can approach us and say, hey, I didn't understand that Robert's rule thing. Would you mind explaining it to me? Or an alum who's just lost about what's really going on. Where do I find the agenda? There's a lot of things that we take for granted as people that have participated in conventions, and one of the ways I think it's a way to bring us all together and show that, okay, here we are and you're a part of it, and here's where we're going. So come along, let's participate. And it's a learning experience for everyone. And not only that, but it creates friendships that last in some cases until death. Well, in all cases with me until death. But it is a way for us to all come together and learn. And it's also a way for delegates that are first-time delegates
Hey,
to
Susie,
come
that was
together.
time.
Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you, Susie. Allie, it's now your turn, and you can start now.
Everybody's brought up wonderful points about convention and just kind of talking about the magic of it. And I think for me, the real power of convention is those moments when you're standing in the room and you kind of take a second to look around and you see the look of just pure excitement on the new actives, where it was their first convention, and getting to see them wide-eyed and realizing that this organization is bigger than their college campus, while at the same time looking at some of our alumni who get to see each other once a year or maybe haven't seen each other in 5 years and just reconnect immediately. And then you start to watch everybody kind of slowly mingle together and make those connections. And I think that is some of the most powerful things that happen at convention, and why they're so critical is because it reminds everybody that the organization is so much bigger than you realize it is when you're in the thick of it. And I think it's a really big morale boost for everyone on all levels, no matter where you are in this organization. If you've maybe just showing up to convention and you've never volunteered, it's kind of hard to leave OPA convention without wanting to be more involved. And so I think capturing that and looking at that momentum and keeping that going throughout the rest of the year is so important. And I also think getting to debate things when we're talking about legislative issues is also something that just has to be done in person, because it's infectious and it gets you really motivated to make change at your chapter, or if you're an alum, sometimes at your city or community level. And so I think aside from, all the logistical things and leadership that is so amazing that you take away and that you learn from their chapters, I think it's that shot in the arm that sometimes you need. And it's also those incredible connections that you make, and you get to look at all the other connections that are being made around you. And I think all of that is why an in-person real life convention is so important to what we do and just makes this organization.
Sorry, Allie, that was time, but thank you.
Thank you, Allie. We are now going to move to the individual questions. So I put the order in the chat so folks are aware. It's just based on the position you're running for. So Brittany, we will start with you. In your application, you mentioned the need to identify and adapt to new ideas and changes. Can you share an example of how you've done this while serving on the board of directors?
Yeah, I think that a couple of the most significant ways we've done that, one being convention, the programming, we've worked to streamline it, make sure that it's programming that our members want based off of their feedback. It's we're trying and we're continuing this to condense it as much as possible so that it, it involves as little time off of work as possible or out of school. Just doing things to really try to make convention more sustainable. And then we've also added the paid chapter health positions, the contract positions, and that was based off of feedback and the fact that we recognized that we needed there to be more support available for chapters, especially chapters that were struggling or on, cap plans or suspension or anything like that. So I think those are the two main big ideas that come to mind right away of ways that we've sort of adapted to these changes and had to come up with like new ideas and things like that.
Thank you, Brittany. Susie, the next individual question is for you. In your application and video, you mentioned that you were interested in running for this position to maintain financial integrity and security of the organization. You also mentioned that you've been responsible for revenue streams and organizations in the past. Can you tell us how you've been able to provide revenue streams and financial security for the Omega Phi Alpha Foundation in your current role as a board member?
In my current role as a foundation board member, I have worked with the team to pinpoint and strategically look at our budget to make sure that we are on budget, but we're also trying to maintain the status quo. We've been very conscious about every penny we spent. And that was one of the things that we wanted from the very beginning was we wanted to be able to make money and not be spending it. So we have done a very good job of that. We have done programs that giving programs and more to come in the next few weeks that we are going to be aligning with our strategic goals that we set for ourselves. And a lot of those goals had to do with different campaigns and the amount of percentage of revenue we want to grow in that year or in this campaign. And we did that with Giving Tuesday, and we're on target to do it for the rest of the year.
Thank you, Susie. The next question is for Alexa. In your video, you talked about how you've implemented processes and procedures for the organization to improve our financial stability and sustainability. Can you share more about some of these processes and procedures?
Everyone's favorite topic, right? Yes, my favorite, process improvements, all of it. Absolutely. So one of the things that I really wanted to focus on when I came into this role was making it easier for future people who stepped into this role, easing that transition because it's a lot to get up to speed. And that just, you lose time, you lose information, you're digging through stuff. And so one of the first things I did was streamline and our forms for reimbursements, vendor payments, everything like that, to also ensure that we were having things paid in a timely manner, which wasn't always happening. And so that has been improved. And it also has increased the organization of our documentation, and we've added an automated approval system. And so those who need to approve them can get approved before the invoice gets paid and it's documented, all wonderful things. One of the other really exciting and fun ones is we redid the chapter annual financial reports to make them much more concise and easier for chapters to fill out. Which also in turn has lended us to getting much more accurate information needed for our financial reporting for tax purposes, and is saving us time on having to go back and ask chapters questions, get more information. And as well as doing this, we created a template for chapters to use for their budgeting, do budget to actuals, and to maintain all their transactions so that it'll flow all the way in and fill out their financial report for them at the end of the year. So those are just a few that we've worked on this year, and I look forward to working on more.
Thank you, Alexa. The next question is for Allie. In your application, you discuss the importance of listening to our members at all stages of life to improve our organization. Can you share about a time that member opinions have impacted your view of the organization and set a strategic goal for you to pursue?
Yeah. So different members at different stages of their life have different needs. And I think one of the things that we have heard is, wanting to find unique ways for people to get involved. And we've been able to transition that into some virtual things, virtual workshops, virtual ways for people to get engaged. But one of the other things I think is really neat is watching the way that, like I was talking about in my initial thing about patterns, watching people be really interested in certain ways of giving back. We can kind of see if alums want to be a chapter big, how that kind of goes into their involvement and how they want to find ways to get involved in the sorority that way. But also even just looking at things like responses to chapters that have needs and finding, okay, we're seeing a lot of alums really like being able to just at least support the chapter by hopping on to Amazon and sending them a little something so that it's hey, we're present. And I think looking at that feedback, whether it's coming directly from a survey, which we always discuss in our meetings and find ways to incorporate that feedback, but also looking at the things that don't necessarily come through in some written form, but just look at the responses and go, okay, we're seeing this is really cool. We're seeing a lot of engagement in this way. And so what that tells us is that people want to be involved and can be involved in these ways. People that maybe we weren't ever able to see in a larger volunteer role, they still want to be engaged. And so I think taking all those pieces and turning it into the goal of finding those unique ways to get them engaged at the level that they're comfortable with, and really addressing volunteer opportunities in more project-based opportunities, I think is something that we really had as a good strategic goal going forward, listening to the written feedback, but also watching the pattern feedback from membership at many levels.
Thank you, Allie. Next is Samantha. In your video, you mentioned your desire to uncover and evaluate how to re-engage members to contribute to the organization. Can you share more about your ideas on this subject?
Yes, thank you. So in my professional work, I get to do a lot of strategic thinking. I work in business strategy and communications, and so I get to kind of go through the strategic process from ideation to outcomes. And so when I got this question, makes me think of that process. And so when I think towards strategizing towards a goal, the first step is always going to be uncovering and evaluating what the current state of that situation is. And so I know this question is asking for me to elaborate on that. And for me and for the membership position and all of that entails, that is understanding the needs and desires that are important to our members, and what is the gap or what is the purpose that we can serve as we look to who potential new members could be. So I know there's lots of ways we could do this. Of course, the first that comes to mind is a survey. And I know OPA has a few surveys that go out at different increments of time. And although I'm not privy to the information, if I had to guess from experience administering surveys myself to membership organizations, I would expect low participation. And so what I would propose is actually going to a second approach. And to me, this is a better way of listening to our membership that is not a written, but it's actually a spoken and a participatory way of collecting feedback, and that is roundtables. And this really allows it allows us to hear from our members about what they're passionate about, whether that's specific topics or grievances, or maybe it's just a way for them to re-engage or get that connection with another member. But I think that roundtables could be something we utilize, and they could be organized by region or by topic or by some other category. But I think hosting these meaningful discussions really allows members who want to participate and who want to provide more feedback the opportunity to do so. And it allows them to deliberate, and whether that's with the board or even pulling in the operational leadership team, it gives us that opportunity to really pinpoint where our strategic direction needs to go so that we can provide guidance to the OLT and to other volunteers to execute. And kind of a mantra we use in the field that I work in is just, we have to take the temperature now to really understand how to
Thanks,
improve.
Samantha, that was time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Samantha. The next question goes to Nanda. So in your application, you talked about the importance of providing assistance and training when necessary to help chapters and members remain in good standing and successfully achieve the mission of the sorority. Can you talk more about how you've participated in the implementation of this while serving on the current board of directors?
Sure. Those of you who've seen me in other Zooms and presentations know that I usually do things in threes. It helps my memory to remember them. So I'll do three. I'll do actives, young alum, and alum. So starting with actives, one thing that we have dealt with in the past couple of years, and is probably an age-old issue within our sorority, is when we have chapters who are endangered or may need a little extra assistance, it's very easy to jump to conclusions and say, they never get their service hours in, they never have the right service projects, that's not approved. It's very easy to just say that. But if we take a step back and we look at what's really going on, sometimes we realize, just like myself, we don't always know what we don't know. They may have been taught by a predecessor in a way that may not have been the best, or their chapter may have had traditions that may or may not have been completely, by the books. So if you're planning a service project that involves alcohol, just FYI, that's not good. But they may not have had the proper training. So it's important to take a step back, see what the real issue is. And in this particular instance, I participated in some chapter meetings for chapters who needed help to just kind of talk through that and see what's going on. And then for young alumni, I have to admit, I may, be on my 25th anniversary with OFIA, but I have to say that I founded my chapter and then I pieced out after graduating. So I'm one of those young alumni who we got lost in the middle and came back later in life. And so that's something that I've been talking about. How do we keep people engaged? How do we let them know what's next? You don't know what you don't know. So one thing that we're working on, that Taylor is working on, and our young alumni coordinator, is what's next for alumni, just so that everyone is helping everyone else succeed and stay involved. And then finally with alumni, one thing that we've learned from feedback, like Sam was saying, real feedback from our OLT members, is that they really wanted some leadership training. And earlier, I think last year, it's already been a year, I was able to bring in one of my professional contacts to help facilitate a multi-day Zoom workshop on leadership training and a little bit of coaching, just to help us all work better together. And you can use that within our organization.
That was time, Nanda. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nanda. The next question is going to Megan. So you mentioned in your application that serving on the board of directors after serving on the NEB was an eye-opening experience. Can you elaborate more on the positives and or negatives of this transition and how you've seen it change the future of the organization?
Absolutely. When I was vice president of membership on the NEB, I was in constant contact with chapter officers, specifically membership directors. It was basically a full-time job that I was every single day communicating with chapters. And I felt very disconnected from the other members of the board. While I could reach out to them if I needed assistance, and often did because I was a brand new NEB member, I didn't always feel like I could go to them because I felt like they were busy enough with what they had to do plus their full-time jobs. The opposite of that is being on the board of directors. And I feel like the group that we've founded together is a family. Everything, like all of our strategic decisions are ones that we agree on and work together. And I feel like that is really different because we're not necessarily only working in our wheelhouse. We're working together to make sure this decision makes the most sense for everyone as a whole. The time commitment is much more manageable. I mean, I have a full-time job, I have a part-time job, which I'm at right now, and I'm still able to serve on the board of directors in a meaningful way. That's not something I ever would have been able to do as an NEB member because that was a full-time job for me. Luckily, I was in between grad school and full-time job, so I was able to do that. So while programs is my wheelhouse, we're able to bring all of our perspectives together and do what's best. And it might seem hands-off to individual chapters, but I'm consistently thinking of different ways to build engagement, both at the active and alumni level, specifically like Allie mentioned, making project-based positions available. So if you want to serve, you're able to do so within a time managed position. It's just really different. And I think it works and it is much more manageable for anybody who wants to stay involved. And we're able to set more strategic decisions and move us forward. And I feel like I wasn't able to set goals for myself when I was on the NEB because I was only living day to day, managing each thing as it came or the crisis that came because I didn't have people working with me or under me necessarily to help manage those things. And on the board, there's always somebody that you can go to now. And that's something that's really helpful and really special about our organization as it is today.
Thank you, Megan. So the next set of questions will be for the national president candidates for both of you. You'll each have 3 minutes to answer these questions. We'll start with Brittany and then go to Susie. The first question is, at the core of the presidency is the president's project. What do you look to when thinking about ideas for your president's project?
Oh, this is a good question. When I'm thinking of my president's projects, I take several different things into account, I think. I think about causes or issues that are really important to me or impact myself, my friends, my family, people I know in a direct way. I think about current issues in, society, in, our government, in the world, things like that, things that are happening that our members are faced with or dealing with in the moment. I think about and then of course I get lots of ideas from there. So then I also have to sort of think about what are things that can translate well into projects that our chapters can do, and that any individuals who want to participate on their own can do. And I also take chapter feedback specifically into consideration as well. For example, after my 2021 project, we did get some feedback from chapters that it would be nice to have a slightly broader project because it would be easier for them to find ways to participate in. And then also for me to give specific examples, of whatever project I come up with, what are ways I was thinking of that they could participate in. And so I took that into consideration for my 2022 project and tried to make that a little bit more broad and, gave them a list of specific examples and ways that they could get involved with that. So there's a lot to that. And then I talk with the board. Like Megan said, we're friends and a family. And so I'll say, okay, I've narrowed it down to like these couple of things. And Is there anything I'm missing in these ideas, or any that you guys think would be especially impactful, or things like that. And then I just sort of take all of that input and thought process and play around with it until something just really feels right. A lot of it, though, ultimately is just gut and intuition and passion.
Thank you, Brittany. We will now move on to Susie, and Susie, you can start now.
Well, having never had to even think about a president's project, and I've not even thought about it until this moment. One of the things I would take into consideration definitely would be what the chapters are facing and what are their issues, and what's going to be something that they can grab hold of and make a difference. You know, I have a lot of passions about a lot of different things, but what I think is going to be a good project maybe will not be anything that anybody else would consider. So I would take in, just like Brittany said, a lot of other people's opinions and considerations, but I mainly want something that the chapters will be able to get their hands dirty doing, that they're going to feel it. They're going to know what it felt like to do this project, not because it's the president's project, but because it made a difference to them. And that's what's important with how we do things, is we've got to learn how to really impact them, because we are a sort of service organization. And when we say, well, our national project or our president's project or whatever is this, we need to tell them directly, this is what it's about. Here's some ideas, but open your eyes, see what you can see, but make it your own. And that's would be what I would consider for any president's project, is something that the chapters can really grab hold of. And at the end of the day, they can say, gosh, Susie, that was spot on. Whether or not it's going to be spot on, I don't know, but I certainly, that would be my thing, is to grab them and let them have the gusto and run with it.
Thank you, Susie. The next question for you both is, what do you think is the largest issue facing the sorority today? And how do you intend to address that in your term if elected? And Brittany, you can go ahead.
I think that this might be kind of a two-parter. I think that one of the biggest issues that we have right now is that our active members are the ones who are paying for and sustaining this organization currently. And it's hard I think we need to figure out, how do we respect and honor that, unless it changes, but also, honor the input of our alumni and develop financial sustainability at the same time. The way to address this is a complicated answer, I think. This is something to some extent, we've been trying to figure out always, but definitely the last couple of years, because I know this was something that, we talked about when I was elected this last term, and the board and I have been working aimlessly to figure it out. And I don't think it's an easy answer, but I think that what it is going to entail to find that answer is making sure that we're finding ways to incorporate the feedback and the opinions of our alumni, looking into ways other than active member dues to have income and revenue, and financially support the organizations, that's no longer ideally the main supporting financial factor. And possibly looking into, in the future, there being more of a genuine alumni membership, in the sense of, is there a way for us to reestablish alumni chapters in some way where there is dues or some sort of financial contribution that the alumni are making on a more regular, consistent basis. Also working with the foundation to help figure out ways that they reach out to the alumni and utilize the foundation's resources to help with that as well. So I think it's a multifaceted thing. It's not an easy answer, and there's going to be probably a lot, and there has been a lot of trial and error. But it just comes down to really sort of digging into these different ideas and brainstorming and thinking out the potential impact of these and figuring out what makes sense to and is we're capable of implementing in this given time, whatever.
Hey, Brittany, that was time. Sorry. Thank you, though.
Thank you, Brittany. Susie, you can proceed.
Thank you. Well, I do agree with Brittany that we need to look at financial stability, not just from a dues aspect of our members, but I also, as I said in my video, one of the things that I think as an organization, not as a bunch of friends, but as Omega Phi Alpha National Service Organization, we need to have policy and procedures in place. There may be now, I don't know, but we need to have those. We need to make sure that when we hire people and we pay people, that we provide them with reviews and ways to do their job better, so that we're just not sending money out. And I'm not saying that's what's happening. This is me talking. So financial stability is very important, policy and procedure. When we are able to be financially secure in our own skin, we will be stronger, and we will be able to develop partnerships with other organizations or like organizations, not only with our universities, but within our communities. One of the big things that I've always said is, don't be afraid to ask your friends for money. Sometimes let me clarify, not money for me, but money for the organization. That's one of the things that, as being a foundation board member, I went out and recruited people that have nothing to do with Omega Phi Alpha, but they knew what it meant to me in my heart, so they gave some money. So that's part of our process of thinking out of the box, ways we're going to be able to sustain our financial stability. The other thing is, we need to figure out some kind of fundraiser, something that's going to drive some revenue. It may not be a fundraiser, I'm not sure, but we've got to drive some revenue, and we've got to make sure that we're always financially responsible, and that our strategic and operational goals will align. I think some operational leadership team workshops would be good. It would be good to bring the whole group together and talk about how we get from the bottom to the top. If we're going to do the strategic plan, they got to buy into it. And if they don't buy into it because they don't know about it, or they didn't get to participate, they're not going to feel comfortable with it. So we need to roll it up, roll it down, and roll it back down, and roll it back up. So
That was time. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you all so much. We are officially almost at time. We have 1 minute, but thank you to all the candidates for your time, for answering the questions. And we are excited for the next town hall. Look out for an email to remind you. And then the next time, tell a friend and bring them to this space too, so they can hear from our lovely slate of candidates. So everyone have a great night, and this recording will be available for everyone to see.